Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inventive Marketing Club number 18. Can you believe it? 18 already. Feels like only yesterday when I started. In this club session, I'm going to be looking at how to design and build a website. I'm going to be specifically looking at my design process from the very design, starting at the beginning with the design and the planning and everything it takes to get it live, including my actions at the end, which are quite crucial really to not missing anything. I've also got some extra slides going through the content management systems. Now, I don't know how long this is going to last, so I don't know if we'll get to those. If we don't, I'll make sure they're included anyway, and you can read through them yourself. But if we can get to it, that's brilliant. For those who don't know me, my name is Ben Kinnaird. I've been working with lots of businesses over the last years. We started in 2009. I focus on marketing strategy, web development, video, data analysis. They're all the sort of things I like, but really what I enjoy is just helping people overcome challenges, whatever they may be. Please do ask questions as you go along in the chat. Hi, Joy. Great topic. I hope so. And if you haven't, do check out our previous webinars. We've got another 17 of these on various different topics. If you don't have the login to Basecamp and you're not sure where to get all these previous webinars, email me, support@ratherinventive.com. If you prefer to listen to them as a podcast and you don't know where to get that either, again, email me. Right, let's crack on because I believe we've got lots. Okay, so essentially my process when we onboard a client with a project is to go through a series of calls. Sometimes there can be a meeting. At the moment, obviously, we're doing a lot more remote work than we're mostly remote anyway, but we've missed out that initial first meeting. But essentially, it's a series of calls. And I want to get everyone working together, whether it's just me and a client working on a website, or we've got a designer, copywriter, photographer, videographer involved. I want everyone to work together. I don't want the client to work with just me and then I feed out the information to everyone else. Or maybe we're working with an external project manager. I want everyone to understand the same thing and be on that journey together. I believe it produces a better result and you don't get the Chinese whispers effect. We move through several different stages: planning, content gathering, the design and build phase, which, to be honest, that can last the longest part as you iterate through, going live, and then review at the end. And really, for me, it's all about iterating on the previous step. So when we're planning, we don't know what's going to happen, but we have a good idea. The client has certain expectations. They want things for their visitors. They want to be able to achieve more sales, whatever it may be. And then we iterate on them. We say, well, how do we get there? What do we need on the website to put that into place? And then how do we need that to look so it's friendly for the customers? So the obvious things are obvious. And then how do we go live? Where's it going to be hosted? Have we got all the details for that? And then finally, looking back through the website at the end of the process, maybe 14 days, 30 days later, to say, has it done everything we wanted to? And what else can we do? What more can we do? And I passionately believe in this. I've been involved in lots of projects where it's come from a very project management centric and a design centric background. So the project manager will liaise with the client. They'll bring back all those details and they'll feed it to a designer who'll make the design. And then that design is fed to a coder or programmer who'll make it work. And then that's all fed back to the project manager who liaises with the client along the way. And while that does work, I find there's a lot of wastage in that process. So the first step, planning. Like a lot of things, it's often the stage a lot of people don't do enough of. And I'd rather spend more time planning or guessing about what's going to happen than just jumping straight into designing it, as fun as that may be. And there's lots of clients who want to jump into that phase because it's exciting. They want to go and design things, whereas actually we need to just plan. Forget about the design, forget about what it looks like, and just think more about, the things we've got here. So what must it do? What do we actually want the website to achieve? When we're thinking about our customers or potential audience, what do they need out of the website? How is it going to help them? Competitors, having a really good look at the people who are going to compete for your audience's time, or they're going to come up in search rankings, or they're just going to be a brand they already know. What are they doing well? What can you take from what they're doing well and do it better? And then putting that into a site plan. So taking some of those ideas and thinking about what are the main pages you need in the site. We call them landing pages or sometimes campaign pages. And then what are the supporting pages? So all the pages around that add additional information. And then any other content ideas, really putting that all down in the site plan. And then putting everything into a project plan. And the project plan will tell you who's working on the project. It's going to go through the objectives, any timelines. It's going to have the audience details, competitors, and so on. So often, the first call we have with the client, we go through all of this, collect a lot of information, then put that into one plan. And that can be shared out with the client and anyone else working on the project. So we've all got one base point to work from. What I really hate about some projects is you get thrown lots of information by lots of different people. Maybe there's lots of stakeholders within a larger organization, and they're all throwing you information. I think you've got to have one place where everyone agrees on how to move forward from that place. And so it's really important to go through this project plan. Something I didn't mention at the beginning, but some of the documents I'll reference here, I will make sure I've got a full version of that in our Clubhouse so that you can use that for yourself. If you're developing your own website, you can go through the same process we do. Even if you're doing it on your own, it's still worth doing. For some reason, I can't check onto the next slide. I'm just going to have to refresh my page and come back. Hold on. How bizarre. I had to close Chrome completely as my mouse wouldn't click through it. Hopefully it's going to work now. Sorry about that. Okay, so moving on. There we go. Brilliant. So moving on to website objectives, part of the planning session. So there's a couple of things here. I've got the full planning document that I use. You can download. I'm just going to pick out some bits from that. So vision. And this is all about, you often hear this vision or mission. It's all about what you as a person or as a business want to be known for. And I think that's core. Once you understand that, everything else comes off that. All the supporting content, everything you're trying to do is in order to further that particular vision. So think about what you want to be known for. Think about the outcomes you want from this website. Do you want downloads? Do you want sales? Do you want signups? What do you actually want people to do on the website? And then you start thinking about what content needs to be on there, the sites or styles of designs that you, and more importantly, your customers will like, and then any deadlines and dates. So jotting all of that information down. Oh, hi, Philippa. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us, particularly relevant for you. The next section is audience. Now, I've talked extensively on audience in another webinar. It's number 11, called Understanding Your Customer. So I suggest if you want to know more about that, rather than me rehashing here and wasting time, that's the one to listen to. And I go through that in detail. If you haven't done any of that, it's well worth going through that full process. It's not only going to help with a new website, but it helps with any marketing you're doing. It really just helps you understand who you're trying to communicate with on your website. Because remember, and a lot of people forget this, the website you're building is not for you. It's not for your company in most cases. It's for the people using it, your customers, your audience, people who are coming in from social media who want to read a blog article. That's who it's for, not for you. So it's worth understanding that audience truly and deeply so that you can better communicate with them. And I'm still learning all the time, constantly. I'm learning what people like about the way I work and how, if there's any improvement points or things I need to mention on the site to connect the difference between what I'm presenting and who I actually am. So yeah, go and check that out. That's number 11, called Understanding Your Customer. I haven't really done much on reviewing the competition, so I thought I'd bring a few points in here because it's worth touching on, definitely. But a big part of this initial planning process, whether you do it on the call with the clients or who you're working with, or you do it as offline, so you take it away as homework and come back to it and come back in the next call, but it's to review the competition. The simplest way to do this, I think, is just to search as you believe your customer would or your audience would. So just go out, type in a few keywords that you believe they're going to type in, and then review the top 3 results. Look at their snippet. So that's the little bit of text that comes up in Google with the title, URL, and description. Look at that. What do you like about it? What keywords are in there? What can you do better? The reason you want to look at that is because you will be, if you want to be on page 1, competing against those 3 results. So you need to see, is it going to be something that's easy to do? How much work have you got to involve yourself in there? The next thing to do, once you've had a look at the 3 snippets, is to go and have a look at their websites. Again, what do you like about their websites? What are they doing well? Don't worry about negatively criticizing them. There's no point. Just think about the things you like about them, and you want to be aiming to be 10 times better than them. So you want to have more content that talks about, in this case, accountancy. You want to have more images on there. You want to have a video on there if they don't have videos. Look at those top 3 results and think about doing 10 times better. Placement of keywords. Just spend time doing that. It's probably worth spending around half an hour to an hour at the very least, just having a look, not making too many judgments, and just writing down things that you like. Believe me, it's going to be worth it, because and this isn't a process to help you copy them. We don't want to copy them. We just want to see how to be better than them. And the only way to do that is to spend some time really looking. Obviously, if you want more information, then you really need like an SEO audit or competitor review, where we can use some tools to dive into the details about why they might be doing better than you, but you don't need that to begin with. There are a lot of things where you can obviously see that Google is trying to surface useful information, and you will pick that up as you're going through. So that's the first thing I would do after your audience, is a competitor review. Okay, and then we're looking at site plan, and nothing too crazy at this stage. There's no point worrying about an extensive site plan. A lot of people use nice fancy tools for doing this, like Visio, or some people use Keynote or PowerPoint. I won't worry too much about that. I like a nice simple bulleted list. So start with your key pages, home, the landing pages, the main pages you want people to go to, and then your supporting pages, blog articles, anything you can think of, really. Just put that down and make sure you've got a loose hierarchy. One thing I would say is to try and keep the hierarchy as simple as possible. You really don't want people to be going more than 3 levels deep. So that would be, in this case, maybe home is 1 level, tax is another level, and then a page under tax would be a 3rd level. You don't really want people going 4 levels deep or more if you can avoid it. Sometimes you need to do that, but try and avoid it. And the easiest way of avoiding it is to structure it all up front in a very simple sitemap. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to see what's going on. So I've got a very simplistic view here. Yours is going to be difficult. You can do it in boxes. You can do it in fancy programs if you like, but I think either just write on a piece of paper or just sketch it out in a bulleted outline format. Keep it simple, because we'll be moving on and taking that data into the actual website as soon as possible. So we don't want to be wasting time on that. And that's a good point, actually. A lot of people will develop very extensive and well-designed plans and sitemaps and various other content at different stages throughout a project. But to me, there's very little point in doing that. If you can articulate what you want clearly, then you don't need to go any further than that by making it look pretty, because we're only going to use that content to take us on to the next stage, which in this case will be a wireframe where you start pulling all that content together. So just do the bare minimum you need to get it across. It doesn't need to be beautiful, really, because we're going to throw it away and move on from that. It's just so we've got a starting place. Okay, so once you've got an idea of who the audience are, the competition, you've started to pull together the ideas for your website, just put together some loose pages. The next thing to do is content gathering. And this can be fun depending on the company, sort of company you're on, how much marketing you do already. But essentially, it's about pulling everything you've got into one place. So any photography, any videos, any audio, if that's relevant, text, whether that be printed or otherwise, just put everything together. The previous website, any online marketing you've done, social media posts, bring it all together in one place, whether it's screenshots or copy and paste in the text, doesn't really matter, but bring it all into one place. We use Google Docs for sharing files. So I like to set up a client folder and then share that folder with the client, and they can just dump everything in there. And that can work quite well. So we can share that with whoever on the project, whoever's working on the project, and refer back to things later. Once you've brought everything together, the next thing to do is to then just work through it, look at it, decide whether you're going to keep it, discard it, or whether you need to write something new, maybe a commission a photographer or copywriter to write new. But the first phase is to bring it all together and then start chucking it out. It's a bit like tidying your room, your bedroom, or your house. The easiest way to tidy it really is to pull everything out of the cupboards and then look through it, sift, and then throw all those bits out and then start putting it all back in. And that's all we're doing here. We're looking at everything you've already got and then sifting through. You could is it like the Mary Kondo method? So you could think about, do I love this bit of content? Do I really want to keep it? The other thing to look at is to start in this phase is to start thinking about how the sitemap will start looking as a website. And that's what I call the wireframe. And this is about taking all of the information you have and starting to put it into a real website where you can. Again, some people will use specific software to develop wireframes. We actually put it straight into the website. Don't worry about the design. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Just start creating the pages, giving them the titles you think they should have, and start putting in the content that you feel should be in there. And if you don't know what the content is, just write in brackets what you think should go there. So it could be three column images demonstrating our main products, or blog articles here. Doesn't matter. Just start putting in. Don't worry again what it looks like. It's not important. It's about, this phase is really about putting everything in place. It's also worth looking at search engine optimization. And once you've gone through and put some of the content into the wireframe, thinking about what keywords people would type into Google or other search engines to find that particular page. And I would spend your time on that. Again, doing a bit of research. Once you've got an idea of what the keyword is, you can put that keyword into Google, see what comes up. Again, you probably got a little bit of this information from your competitor research. So start doing a little bit more, digging into what keywords are used, whether they mean the same thing as you think they are. Is the right content coming up in Google? Are those pages expected? Are you going to have to develop pages like that to get found, and so on? This stage is a bit iterative. You've got to kind of go round and round a little bit. And SEO really is something that starts here, but moves all the way through the website and continues forever, really, as you're marketing and refining it. So at this stage, definitely focus on content. Gather everything together. Do not worry about what it looks like. It really isn't important. It's more important that we're just gathering information together. And the way, I've mentioned this before, really, just when you're making content and you're making a page, if you want it to be found on Google, or you want people to not click off it and bounce away, just make it bloody good. Make it 10 times better, 20 times better. It doesn't matter. That's an arbitrary number. Just make it a lot better than your competition, because it's going to help you get found in Google results. It's going to help you get shared and people naturally linking to it. The easiest way, if you're new to copywriting and you want to try it yourself, and it's certainly worth doing at least this phase yourself, even if you're going to get a copywriter later, is to start with the snippet. This is usually, from an SEO point of view, the first bit of information people will see. So I don't know where I heard this theory, so I can't credit them, but it makes sense that if someone is going to see this bit of information first, then they're going to have expectations for what's going to be on your website and your page copy. So what you want to do is write the website that you want in this little bit of text. So make sure the title is right and the description is right, because if you get those right, it's going to be much easier to write the page content, because all you're doing is fulfilling what you've already said in the snippet. But also it's going to hopefully be setting the expectations correctly, so when people click through, the website's going to match. And that's what I've done in the example here for our club page when I was redeveloping it, is to think about the snippet I want from the SEO point of view. So what keywords are people searching for? What keywords need to be in there? What expectations do I need to set up? What things would they be interested in? That all needs to go in that small bit of text. And it's quite nice. It's like writing a tweet. Having those constraints makes you write better and think about what's important. Once you've got that snippet, you can then either give that to a copywriter or write it yourself. But it really does help in terms of people finding you. You'll also find that once you have that snippet, that might be shared on social media. So it's going to be very similar content. And it's actually a really good way of thinking about it with advertising as well. If you're going to do Google ads, do the same thing. Whatever you write in the advert, make sure that's echoed in the page copy. Where if you're doing a Facebook advert, exactly the same thing. So if writing is new to you, definitely start with a snippet. It makes things a lot easier, but I also believe it benefits your customer, and you're going to reduce your bounce rates, because what you're setting up at the beginning is going to be exactly what you're delivering on the page content. It's also very relevant for SEO, so you may as well start here first. And as you can see, we're starting to build up our sitemap and our wireframe, and starting to think about the SEO components, what the URLs are, because they matter, what the actual page titles matter, how they link up with the keywords. We've got our supporting content here from the blog kicking in, which is really important to think about that. So definitely keep iterating on that site plan and wireframe to make sure that you are focusing on what your customer wants, but also developing the website from a for Google, so that Google can see which pages are important. And that's what this is really doing here. I'm not going to talk much more about SEO and landing page SEO. If you want to know more on that, again, not to waste time, go back and watch these 2 episodes. IMC number 6 is all about SEO strategy, so it's going to take you back to basics, really. Number 16 is about improving landing pages, and I had my colleague Chris Richards join me to talk about that, and we take a bit more of a specific use case for a client and going through the steps we went through to improve their landing page. Now, I think if you watch both of those, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to develop your write your snippets, develop your site structure with SEO in mind. Of course, you don't need to bother about search engine optimization, but if you don't, it's going to be it's going to be more difficult to start implementing that later. Not impossible, just more difficult. And it's also going to be, well, if you want to be found, you need to consider it. It's so important. So after you've watched this, go back and watch these if SEO is particularly important to you or you're completely new to it. Okay, now, so we've gone through the understanding phase. We've then moved on to the content gathering and pulling everything together. Now we've got, depending on the size of the project, this could be the biggest element of the site, and that's almost the site, the part of the project which we iterate over and keep coming back to and going round and round and round until it's right, until we can move on to going live. But really, it's quite simple. For me, I think we should have done a lot of the work already in terms of getting the site up and running on WordPress, which is the way we develop sites. We've got most of the pages in place. We've done a lot of the SEO research, so the titles and the descriptions should be correct. And maybe we're starting to write the page copy based on those. This is the stage where we start confirming elements. We start bringing stuff together and saying, well, okay, if we're going to go live, what's really important for our customer? What do we need and what don't we need? You're starting to make hard decisions about what needs to go in there. You're refining content. Maybe this is the point you do bring in a copywriter. But you're looking at it from the point of view of writing content or developing content that is going to best enable your visitor, your customer, your audience to achieve what you want them to achieve. So if you think back to your website objectives, what did you want that customer to do, that potential customer? Do you want them to download something? In which case, The whole process must be designed to make it as easy as possible for them to do that. And you're not necessarily going to get it right first time. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer about that. You can't just copy someone else's site and you're going to get it right. The best thing to do is to do the best you think based on the customer that you're writing for, and make sure the things you want them to do are clear. They're either big, they're at the top, they're above the fold, so they're in the first part of the page that you see before having to scroll, that you make it obvious. Don't make people think, don't make it difficult for them. People talk about the length of time that people spend on websites when they land on them, and they say people have short attention spans. People don't have short attention spans when they know what they want. So if you can make it obvious up front, if you can make it very clear and quick to understand that you can deliver what they want, which is a download or to buy the product, or it's the right product for them or right service. If you can do that first, then people will spend more time on your website. So once you've done that, also think about supporting content. So maybe you've got your core landing page. So that is like our club page. That's our core landing page. That's what I want people to come into. But maybe you've got supporting content on there, like FAQs. What are the questions people ask you about? Why are they bouncing away? Maybe they don't get what you're trying to offer, and you need to revise that description. You need to put more questions in to or answers in to keep them on the page longer. Maybe you've got some technical specification PDFs you need to link on there. It could be that they aren't quite ready yet, and they need to be reassured a bit more, or they need to research your area a bit more before they know your product is the right way forward. So maybe writing blog articles there or producing videos. It could be, and we did this on the club page, that you produce an upfront video at the top, which in hopefully simple terms and quickly explains how you can help them and what the benefits are. Maybe you can do a few of those and they can watch. If it's a product, you might want to do product demos so they can see what some of the features are like. In fact, a really good product demo I saw from the company Basecamp, who actually make a lot of the software, or the software we use. They've got a new email product they released called Hey, and the CEO did a 37-minute in one take video just exploring the features. So it's just a screen share where they just walk through their particular features of their product. It was brilliant. It wasn't boring. It showed you the features from their point of view and why they were useful to them. He was so excited about showing these because he was genuinely excited about the product himself, and that came across. So 37 minutes might be a long time, but it's incredibly useful. And in fact, that's a really good way to write content if you find writing difficult. Just do a product demo of it if you want. Talk to someone else, do a video, do a screen share, just do a voice memo, and then transcribe that back. Because you'll probably find that you might just talk through some of the options that are quite difficult to write. And then when you transcribe it back, you can put all that content onto the page, and you've got a brilliant, maybe a feature by feature description of why people should use it. You also want to review at this stage the internal linking structure. So make sure that all your pages link up well, particularly if you've got supporting content. You want to make sure they link back through to the landing pages. And then, and this is the last stage really here, add design to help the content stand out and make it easy to navigate where you need to. So don't add design for design's sake. I don't believe a website should be designed first and then built and the content filled in later, which is how a lot of people do it because they get excited about the design. I believe that you should have the content first, and the design is just a way to present that content in a way that is easy to consume. Highlighting buttons or videos or things that you need on the page to make sure that people can get out of it what they want. So if you do everything else first and then start coming to the design to make it as usable as possible, I think that's the better way around, and it's going to make for a better website. Also, you know what? You might start getting rid of some of the crap that people have on websites, like, and I'm not having a go at anyone here, but like big sliding banners, or focusing on chucking lots of information at the top, confusing people without refining that message down. Lots of heavy JavaScript on the page to make things fade out and move in and pop out. There's nothing wrong with having that, but you've got to get the core message right first, and then you add that other stuff on later if it's going to help people understand the product. Don't shout at me if you don't agree. A couple of ideas in terms of content for landing pages and supporting pages. So on your landing page, this is where you want people to go. So if you've got one product, then you create one landing page. It could actually be the home page. Depends on on how you work. But let's say it isn't. So you've got one landing page and you focus everyone onto that landing page, and then you tell them, you answer all the questions they need to know about that, and then you tell them how to buy, essentially. And then you answer more questions, and then you tell them how to buy again. And you keep doing that, essentially, on that one page, doesn't matter how long it is, until they are satisfied, enthusiastic, and they just want to buy. You can't stop them buying because you've satisfied everything. I know that's not always going to work like that, but essentially that's the goal. So things to focus on on landing pages: title and heading. Incredibly important. They will not only help people know you're in the right place, but they're incredibly important for SEO. We've already talked about writing that snippet first and then moving on to the page copy. So do that first if you can, and then move on to the page copy because it's going to be easier to do it that way. Use a variety of content. So different headings. So make sure you've got your heading 1 at the top, and then heading 2s, and then maybe heading 3s if you need within that. You probably don't need to go any further than that. Use lists where it's appropriate. So either 1, 2, 3 numerical lists or just unordered bulleted lists. Images, definitely use images. It helps break up content. It can also help illustrate a bit of text much more quickly than people having to read. You know, we find it easier to look at images than we do to read text. So if you can have a short bit of text and an image that relate to each other, it helps people scan to find the image or the title, and then they can get the information a lot quicker than just reading. But you do need the text from an SEO perspective. Tabular content as well, videos. The more and the variety of content you put on the page, the better for people and for SEO. Include keyword variations in the content. So in the headings, in the different paragraphs, include variations of the keywords that you're trying to optimize for on that page. Don't overuse keywords. Don't just keep putting in exactly the same keyword on there. Think about the different variations that people might be typing into search engines. This helps Google understand that your page is about a particular topic. It also makes it look like you're not keyword spamming. Make sure any related pages like blog articles or maybe supporting data sheets or anything like that, including PDFs, link back to this landing page. Essentially, what we want to do is create a hub in the middle of your landing page and then spokes of content. And all of these bits of content focus back on that landing page. That not only helps users because they've got one place to go, but it also tells Google that is the most important page. So if it's going to show it, it's going to show that page and not some of the other pages. You can also use FAQ and other schema as well. So make sure any content you've got on there is also marked up in this sort of behind the scenes code that helps Google understand what your page is about and all the content on it. There's lots of different types of schema. You've got FAQ schema, review schema, schema about people. You've got like a how-to schema, which takes people through steps, which is really useful. Review schema. You can go to schema.org and look at all there. So even for me, it's a little bit technical, and we can obviously advise you on the different stuff you need to see. And in fact, if you want to find out more about schema, there was a guy who I interviewed, David Forrester, I'm losing it now, who actually helped develop the schema in the first place. And I talked to him about why it's important. So go and check that out on our podcast. If you're not sure, I'll try and put a link in the notes afterwards. Include social proof, so testimonials, reviews from other people, anything where you have proof that other people are buying from you, maybe even logos from people you've worked at, especially if they're well-known logos. And also include call to actions. Make sure you ask people to do something, whether it's to sign up, buy, download, whatever your objectives are. Do ask people and keep it in the shortest possible terms to ask them to do that. A lot of people don't, and it can really help. And it's not salesy. A lot of people think it's too strong, but it's not. You're just helping people once they're ready to tell them what the next stage is. You're helping people buy. Okay, on supporting pages, so some other examples here. Supporting pages mainly for me are blog articles. So with this, you want to write, once you've got your core landing page, you want to write as much content that is additional detail to that landing page that doesn't need to be on that landing page, but is definitely useful in supporting what's written on there. It's also really useful to capture longer keyword phrases like, how do I do this? Or what is this? Or, I've got some examples up on the screen here. And so you can capture that traffic and then link people to your landing page if they're interested. So some examples of content you can have on here: helping someone, adding value, questions you get asked a lot, FAQ. Certainly if you've got a lot of FAQs, you could make those as separate blog articles. I know with Whitley Jones, one of our clients, we've got FAQs on most of their category pages, but some of those FAQs actually make really good blog articles because there's a lot more we can write about that. In which case, keep the short version of the FAQ on the landing page, write the blog article as well that goes into that in more depth, and then that can link back through to the landing page, and you might even link from the FAQ on the landing page over to the FAQ blog article as well. FAQs are brilliant. And if anyone doesn't know already, and you should, if you have, if you're really stuck for what questions that you can write about, use a service called answerthepublic.com. You type in a keyword, and it's going to give you tons of ideas about what questions people are asking about that product, service, or term. You could write about misconceptions people have in your industry, mistakes people make, things you wish your clients knew. I think that's a good one. Provide an insight into your business, so you can talk about your history. You can talk about maybe away days you have. I think people do like reading about the people within the company once they get to know them. It sort of strengthens that bond. Customer interviews if you have them, or case studies, testimonials. The benefits of your product. A lot of what I say in terms of marketing and web development and content is don't oversell your product. Do talk about the benefits, but don't oversell it. But you do want to say how your product aligns with your customer and what the benefits are of using it. What problem do they have? How does your product solve it? It's really important. In fact, I talk a lot about that in the customer, the audience webinar that I've previously done. And also make sure you link back to your landing page in the first paragraph if you can. If not, link to it somewhere on the page that's relevant, but try and link back to it in the first paragraph. So just some ideas on supporting pages. I do have another webinar on blogging strategy as well you might want to look at, and that goes into it a bit further. Okay, this is quite interesting in terms of understanding why it's important to use images on a page and how people look at a website page. Now, these images, I didn't produce them. They're from the web. But they were produced with eye tracking software. So someone wears a headset and it tracks where their eyes are looking at on the screen. And it's something you may not realize you're doing. Your eyes are constantly scanning. However, they may dwell on a certain area for longer or spend more time there. And so what we're looking at here is the redder or the areas that are more red are areas where more people, because this is not just one person, this is going to be an aggregate of lots of people's data. So it's where most people have spent their time looking at. And then when it's green or blue, then there's just fewer people looking at those particular spots. So let's take them from top left. We've got the picture of the baby, and we actually got before and after there. And this is the idea. What it's trying to demonstrate here is the idea that if you have someone or a face looking at the content, more people will look at the content. It's also showing in here that a face gets a lot more attention than other objects on the page. So if we take the one on the left, we've got the baby looking straight out towards the person. And this works for people of any gender, race generally. If you see a person's face, you are much more likely to look at it, and it's more engaging. Generally speaking, and this is where you've got to be careful that people are you want to represent who your customer is. And so because people are more likely to look at people who look like how they feel. So you want to represent who they are rather than just arbitrary people. That's why it's a good idea to understand your audience better. But if you can have a picture of that person looking at the screen, it's really engaging, really capturing. People are designed to recognize faces. But the trick here is perhaps we can get the face to look where we want other people to look. And so the experiment here is to get the baby to look at the content, and we can see that some of the focus is more shifted on what the baby is looking at. It's certainly worth experimenting with in your own website development when you're doing it, or if you're revising page content, it might be fun to try this. The other thing on the top right is this F pattern. So this is showing how people scan content. So they tend to start at the top and they'll scan the title, and then they might skip through. So in this sense, they're skipping through an image. Maybe they're looking at the little call out box on the right. That's getting a lot of attention. And then they skip down to the main content, read that, and then go, no, I'm not that interested. And they're basically skipping or scanning the content to find what they're interested in. So you see this F scanning, which is what most people do when you've got long form content. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do it unless they're deeply reading. Most people are going to scan like this to find what they want. So we just need to use that to our advantage, and knowing that people read like that, make sure that we are making it easy for them when we're not trying to disrupt that pattern. So good things to know are keep title at the top. People are going to focus on that. Have headings in the content, because people are most likely going to focus on those if they're short and relevant to what they're talking about. Call out boxes are really good. That's why Amazon use them. There's a thing called the Belcher button, or a concept called the Belcher button, which is a funny name, but it's basically speaking, if you put your button in these certain colors and this dotted outline, people are more likely to look at it. I would just say that it's worth looking at that and seeing if it's relevant to you, but having a box on the right hand side, it just shows that it draws attention to it. Also, don't forget the bottom of the page. Often what people might do is they'll scan and they'll look for a conclusion or look for a link or useful information. So make sure you've actually got some call to actions at the bottom of the page, because that's where people will spend a lot of time as much as the top. Just another picture on there at the bottom is this Adidas football shoe. And again, it's just showing how much attention the image gets, because this is much more relevant than some of the other information on the page. So having big, good quality images will get attention, particularly if it's a product that's relevant. So things images can do is they can increase the time on the page. So they can help reduce your bounce rate a little bit and just keep more people on the page. They help people scan content. People are much more likely to read if you've got images within the content, and generally images of people are more attractive. Obviously, you want the images to fit your audience, not you. They've got to fit your audience, or the audience you want to have. I have a lot more information on images. I did a whole webinar on it. It's like this whole webinar is me pointing to other webinars I've got. But I really talk about image editing, where you can get free images, image conversion tools, maybe a little bit of video as well. I can't remember. But that's a really good one as well. And that's going to help if you're producing your own content. So going live, this is probably the really most important part, but I'm not going to dwell too much on it. But there's 2 phases to going live. So we've basically built a website. We're almost ready to go, but we just need to check everything's in place. So these are the steps we go through. And there's a lot more than this. And if you look at the document, I will make sure is in the notes. We go into a lot more detail, but essentially test. Check it on different browsers and devices. So don't just check it in the browser by shrinking it, actually check it on your phone, on your tablet. Check it in Safari if you're on a Mac, check it in Chrome. If you can, it's a little bit more difficult. I don't have a PC to do this, but check it in Edge. I know they're actually using the Chrome system now, so it's less of an issue, but check it in as many different browsers as you can. Definitely Chrome and Safari, they're the 2 big ones, and then iOS and Android if you've got it. I've only got this very old phone just for these sort of testing purposes. I wouldn't want to use it otherwise. So just test. Also test the contact forms. So that means go into the contact form, and you can try on different devices. It's less of an issue, but do try it on maybe a mobile device as well as a desktop device, and check the contact form. Make sure it works. Make sure you get the emails you expect to receive. Try and check out if there's any errors by not entering content, entering invalid content. I don't expect you to do an exhaustive test of this. It's not necessarily an application, but you don't want to miss any contacts. So do spend your time making sure it works. The checkout process, go through that, add a product to your basket, remove it from your basket, add another one, add multiple ones, check the delivery works correctly, go all the way through the process and pay for something with a real credit card to make sure it works. Obviously, if it's your site, you can get the money back, but do test it properly. Don't just rely on the person developing your website. Make sure that you test it as well as them, because you're the one that's going to be missing out if you lose those sales. It also you should be going through this as part of the design process. It's really something that is very fundamental to you getting the money you want, to make sure that checkout process is simple. It's got all the information. It's got any legal information on there. It's very relevant. Downloads as well. Make sure you check downloads, that they work, that you've got the right downloads linked up, particularly if you've got lots of content on the site. It's a pain. It takes time, but it's worth doing now. If you're using WordPress like we do, make sure you review plugins and extensions on the site. Do you still need some of the ones that are on there? Can they be removed or disabled? And make a migration plan as well. This is something we do by scanning the current site. So if you're moving from one site to another, then you scan the current site, you get a list of all the pages, and then bring those into a spreadsheet, and put them in column 1, and then in column 2 you have all of the pages that they're referring to. So maybe your website's getting smaller, so you need to redirect some of those pages to other pages. Maybe it's getting bigger, so you've got to focus on how that works. Pages are being lost or added. Make sure that every single page on your old website redirects over to a new page. You don't want visitors to be lost or to lose ranking. So it's crucial to do this. So many big companies don't. Think about it. It's super important. I've seen so many people lose Google ranking and traffic because they forget to do this. It doesn't take too long. Just think about every single page you've got on your current site and what page it goes to. And then depending on how you're making the website, you want to make sure all of those pages are redirected. And then check for missing pages and errors before we go live. So just, there are online services to do this. We use a tool called Sitebulb, which is a pay-for app. There's also one called SEO Spider you can use. There are online tools that go through and test it, or you can just do it yourself. Just click through all the pages and make sure everything works correctly. The nice thing about using a tool is it'll check all missing assets on there, whether images, scripts, or whatever. So definitely worth doing. And then we move to after live. So there are some steps that you would have to do to change the name servers or a records. It really is specific to how you're making a website as to how you do that. So I'm not going to go into it. But essentially, you've got all this stuff to do before live, and then it goes live. It's actually, after an hour or so, your new website content is live. So the first thing we've got to do is make sure we add an SSL certificate to it. This is now a real requirement from Google's point of view to help you rank against other people who have them. It's also absolutely essential if you've got an e-commerce site to have a secure socket layer certificate on there. Usually easy to add and generally free. You want to be looking out for a Let's Encrypt certificate, which is a free certificate, which is renewed on a regular basis. And once it's set up, you don't need to do anything. Put that in place first. Then, now it's live, there may be some pages that are not quite working. Now you've moved over. The problem with going from staging server to a live server is that some of the URLs might not be quite right or being transferred over. So run another test. Scan all the pages again and make sure it works. Verify your site in Google Search Console. So if your site hasn't been verified in Google Search Console, so that you want to do that because it helps tell Google, A, something new has happened to your site, and it also allows you to see what keyword position you are on Google. Again, I've done another webinar. I think that was the last one I did, actually, number 16. So you want to check that one out, or number 17. And then, yeah, to make sure Google knows about all of the pages on your website, you want to generate an XML sitemap. Yoast, the plugin on WordPress, will do this for you. You can use other tools to generate it for you. You can either manually write it yourself. But adding a sitemap into Google Search Console is going to tell Google, these are the pages I've got on my website and I want them indexed. And the benefit of doing that is if there are any problems with those pages, Google's going to let you know. Also, if this is a new website, make sure you've got Google Analytics code. So set up a new account on Google Analytics, take the code and put it onto your site. We use the plugin Monster Insights for that, but there are lots of ways to add the script in depending on what platform you're using. So once you add that on, do test it. Go into Google Analytics and make sure that the visits on your test website or on your live website are actually translating through in the real-time view, because you don't want to put that on there and come back a couple of months later and you've not got any stats. It's a bit of a disappointment. And there's more things, but essentially make sure the site works before you go live, then go live and make sure it works again, because Things do break between those two phases. And then once we've done all that, you might want to take a little bit of a break. I mean, generally we're on hand because there will be bugs. There will be things that someone didn't spot before it went live. So we fix those as quickly as possible. We're on hand to do that. You want to make sure you're on hand to do that. I wouldn't recommend going live and telling everyone about it. I would go live at a time where you can monitor it and make sure everything's okay. So don't do it on a Friday if you don't want to work on the weekend. Do it during the week at a low point for your company, or maybe overnight might be good if you're happy to monitor that, and then put it live. But don't shout about it straight away on social media. Don't tell people about it. Just put it live and leave it for a couple of days and make sure there are no other problems, because people will see it and they'll spot problems for you. And then if you want, shout about it. Although I've never believed in shouting about a new website. Who cares? Your audience don't care about it unless you've got some great new feature that's built into it for them. So once you've done that, we would have a review normally after 14 days, 30 days, just to go through it. You know, you give yourself a break from that development phase and then come back to it. What that's going to do is your brain's going to come up with new ideas, because you've just finished that project, moved it away from your website, and now you're going to come up with new and better ideas to improve it. So first, go back and review your website against the objectives that you set originally. Have you done everything? Now, don't worry if you haven't. Unless you've paid for something and you haven't got it, don't worry if you haven't, because it just means you've evolved the project to meet the objectives. The objectives have revised as you've gone along. So don't worry about that too much. But if there's something you needed to have in there and it's not working quite right, this is your chance to go back to that developer that you're working with and get them to make it right. Go into Google Search Console. You know, we verified our site with Google Search Console. Go into that and make sure there are no errors. By this point, maybe 30 days, Google should be giving you some data on this. If it's not, you're just going to have to leave it longer, and it's going to tell you if there's any problems with your website. If it finds them, you want to fix them, because if Google's telling you there are problems, then it may well affect your rank. And also at this point, you're going to think of future ideas. So it can be quite a nice time to work through this. Okay. So that was the end of the review. I'm going to see if we can just quickly whip through these content management system, different websites that you can make. But just before I do that, that was a real quick whiz through our web development process. I pointed out to lots of other different types of content that we've got. I will make sure you'll have the full process that we use, and any other documents like the project plan. I've got some content writing ideas and so on. I'll make sure they're all linked from the notes. But there are lots of different ways of building a website, and most of them would work with the approach that I've set out, but I'm going to run through some of the content management systems. So we'll start with just this view of different market share. This is just showing that the dominance at the moment, I can't remember when this was taken, I think it was late last year, that WordPress is the dominant web platform at the moment. It's not necessarily the best for everything. We like it because we can really get to know it and understand it and be bloody good at it. But it's not always the best for everything. It may be if you've got a very small site, like a few pages, you might actually be better off with just a few HTML files if you're focused on speed. But if you want to focus our website on ease of update and having the content managed by lots of people, WordPress is a great platform for that. But you've also got Joomla and Drupal, which a lot of people still use. Squarespace and Wix, they're two quite popular content management sites on there as well. So let's have a walk through them. So Wix, and these I've come across and used many of these with different people. Sometimes I've helped them build the website in these particular platforms, but I wouldn't necessarily advocate to use any of these if we were building a website, but there is nothing wrong with them if you're prepared to go through the, if you're happy with the way that they work. So you've definitely got to check them out and understand what their limitations are. So with Wix, it's pretty quick to set up. It's got a few questions you can go through to help refine the right template for your business. And then it puts a sort of loose idea of a website together with some example content. And then you just fill in the blanks. So people really like that. It can be very useful for starting off. It's got lots of templates. There are simple blocks with prompts. And what I quite like, it's got built-in lots of apps for adding additional things like blog, appointments, e-commerce. I don't like the way it does it. But if you want something quick, it's quite a cheap way to get a website up and running with relatively low skill level. Here are some of the things it looks like, some of the template examples. This is actually someone I work with through the Faster Business program and helping her develop her website. And there's some of their costs. So it can be quite cheap, really. Weebly is another one. I haven't used this so much, but I know a few people do use it. I think I probably prefer the design system on this to Wix, but each to their own. It's how you've got to look at these systems and see which you prefer. I have the least experience with this, but it's got definitely plenty of themes. The designer editor, it's more flexible, but it does allow too much freedom, and I think it allows you too much freedom to actually break the site. There are free accounts available, which some of the others don't have. Some examples here. You can obviously look through these in more detail. Squarespace. This is one I would often recommend if people aren't going to go for WordPress. You've got tons of control over design. I actually quite like it because I can go in and put CSS, so custom cascading style sheets in place to make the design do exactly what I want if need be. The e-commerce can be quite basic. I find the SEO is a bit tricky, really does not allow you the scope that WordPress does. You can adjust template code. You can get nitty gritty if you want, but I couldn't recommend it completely as a website platform because it just doesn't allow me to do everything I want, but it can be a great place to start. It is the more expensive of the few I'm mentioning though. So here's some examples. This is a client kitchen maker over in Nailsworth, and they developed, their designer actually developed it, and we've then helped put some SEO in place. It's quite nice. It looks really nice. And their prices. So it's a bit more expensive than the others by about 3 times. And then there's WordPress. I mean, there's 2 flavors of WordPress. There's the hosted version. So that's where you get a server and you manage it yourself, or you go on WordPress.com, pay them a fee, and they'll do that. You can do it for free on WordPress.com, so you can go and set something up there. I love WordPress. So as a self-managed option, I think it allows you to do anything you want, customize in any particular way. Using WordPress.com, though, I find it's slightly restrictive. And also, I don't quite like the interface. They've got the WordPress interface, plus they have their other interface on top of it. And I don't get it. Maybe it works better for people who don't want to dive into the detail. But I think WordPress gives you the best control over everything, particularly if it's self-hosted. But you can experiment with a WordPress.com site for free, test it out, see how it's going to work. And then if you want to dive into making your own, you can use a self-managed option. And actually, a lot of hosting providers will set up WordPress for you, and then you just go in and customize it by choosing themes and putting your content in. So actually, a self-hosted option, if you're willing to go the extra mile and you've got a good host, is worth doing. This is the WordPress.com, so lots of templates there. Some you have to pay for. They're in the premium version. They won't be available for free. This is part one that we were developing. So it has a really nice block editor. It's come a long way, actually. WordPress is pretty good for that now. And the costs vary. They can go from pretty cheap all the way through to free commerce. A little bit more, well, not expensive, but you're paying a bit more for it. And then finally, Shopify. I'd really recommend Shopify, actually. If you're just building a shop and you want it done really quickly, Shopify is brilliant, really easy to set up. It integrates with Stripe, which they organize for you, and you can get a shop up and running incredibly quickly. So if you want a website, I would always opt for either Squarespace or WordPress. If you just want a shop set up pretty quickly, even if you've got a website already and you just need a shop set up, I'd use Shopify. It's a really cracking way to get a shop set up. Again, if you want more flexibility, I'd go for WordPress with WooCommerce. It's one of the better ways to give you total flexibility. But Shopify is pretty good to start with. A lot of e-commerce sites use it. Simple to set up. It does actually have an app on your phone, so you can monitor and adapt the whole site on your phone, which is ace. It's really, really good. Works very well. In fact, our sister site, Inventive People, is totally on Shopify. I will be moving it to our own installation. I only put it on Shopify to test it out, get to know Shopify a bit better, and because I just didn't have the time to develop a custom version at the moment. But it's really good. The one thing I would say about it, it doesn't allow you to easily get into the code, so it can be really frustrating from that point of view. Here's some ideas of themes. Again, all the designs look lovely in these template builders. As our Inventive People site. It's a bit more pricey. It's more like Squarespace, but it does have the options and it's well worth it. So quick run through. Hopefully you found that information all quite useful. I know we went a lot through the process and then going on to a real whirlwind tour through how you can actually make a website. But hopefully you found that interesting. Joy, thank you. I'm glad you did. What one action would you take away from everything I've got here? Whether you're building a new website to begin with, or you're looking at revising a website, I think you can go through exactly the same process by understanding who it's for, what you're trying to get out of the website, restructuring the content, then putting that all in place, then going live with a new version. I think this process works for everyone. So if you've got any actions, write them in the notes now, and do let me know what you're going to commit to over the next 30 days, or write it down on paper and commit it to yourself. Commit yourself to it. We haven't got time for Q&A. We rarely do. I think I might have to have a separate Q&A webinar. The next topic, I don't actually know. I'm kind of caught in between at the moment. I would love to do a topic where I talk to Matterport, who have a really good 3D viewing system that you can have on your website that allows you to sort of zoom through buildings. It's absolutely great. So I'm going to see if I can try and get them on. Maybe they'll be the next one online. And I'm also going to try and booked in a slot with Catherine Every to talk about how we did a content revision on Community Architect's website and the process that we went through for that. So if I can get Matterport on, they'll be next. Otherwise, maybe I'll speak to Catherine about bringing hers forward. So I'm not sure. It'll be a surprise. If you have any friends or colleagues who would like this club, do tell them about it. If you think it's useful, then do recommend it to other people. I've got tons of these training videos. If you've been on since the beginning, we've got, 18 now. Anyone who joins gets the entire back catalogue, plus they'll get them every single month as well. And I'm going to give them a free 60-minute one-to-one call with me just to kickstart things off and find out what the key issues are for them. It's £25 a month. If there is a discount available though, so if they're interested, get them in contact with me and I'll be able to give them a 50% discount for buying up for the whole year. How do you access the back catalogue? Tell you what I'll do, Philippa, is I will, in a message I'll send out when all the notes are ready, I'll make sure I've got a link in there to the back catalogue so you can go and find everything so that you know where everything is. We've got the podcast in there. We've got all the previous videos I've created. So thank you so much to everyone for watching. This has been, when I started collating the content, I thought this is easy. I've done this multiple times. I've got all this, just put it all in together. Actually, when I started going through, I thought, oh, I can add more to this. There's so much more that I haven't actually shared anyone else. So it's quite a nice process to go through. So thank you very much. The next club session, whatever it's going to be on, is on the 28th. The 28th of July at 1 p.m. Do stay in touch. I'm on support@ratherinventive.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, and have a fab week, everyone, and enjoy the weather. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.